A desperate Rudy Giuliani is now telling a court that he could be homeless if his bankruptcy creditors force him to sell his Palm Beach condominium worth $3.5 million. He should have thought about that before he repeatedly defamed Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss. Let's discuss. I'm Dave Aronberg, State Attorney for Palm Beach County, aka the Florida Lawman, here on the MeidasTouch Network. Thank you for all your likes and your comments. I try to read as many as I can. Appreciate all of you. And now let's discuss the former America's mayor, Rudy Giuliani, who badly wants to be a Florida man. Doesn't everybody? Rudy wants to move to Florida. He perhaps wants to take advantage of Florida's generous homestead laws that could protect his home from bankruptcy, but he's not a Florida resident. And so it's fair game. The house or the condo he has here in Palm Beach, not far from here, he says it's worth about $3.5 million. He also says that his place in Manhattan is worth $6.5 million. It's now been reduced by the creditors to about $5.5 million. That's a more accurate valuation. And the creditors and Rudy Giuliani have agreed to sell the Manhattan home that he has. He now plans to move down here to Florida. Well, Rudy, it's not so easy because you remember he declared Chapter 11 after a jury in December found that he had defamed Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss, the two election workers, mother and daughter team. And he repeatedly defamed them and was ordered to pay $148 million. And so Rudy thought he would get away with it by declaring bankruptcy. Not so fast. Part of the reason why Rudy was hit with such massive punitive damages is because he just wouldn't shut up about his election lies. And so you've got a very motivated victim here, two victims here, in Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss, along with other creditors who are also getting the shaft by Rudy declaring Chapter 11, and they are on him, and they're not letting him go. And just a reminder, this is how brazen Rudy was at his trial when he just should have shut his mouth, but instead he kept putting forth these election lies. He kept repeating the defamation even while the trial was underway. Check this out.
Whatever happened to them, it's unfortunate if other people overreacted, but everything I said about them is true.
Do you regret what you did to Ruby?
Of course I don't regret. I told the truth.
Well, now it's time to pay the piper. On March 15th, beware the Ides of March, Rudy. The Committee of Unsecured Creditors, which represents those who he owes money to, they filed a motion, this committee did, in bankruptcy court asking that the court force Rudy to sell his Palm Beach condo, because if it's worth, $3.5 million, that's a large asset, the second largest asset next to his Manhattan place. And so the creditors are saying, sell it, because otherwise, how are we going to get our huge judgment? And Rudy, of course, is freaking out about it. And his argument is that, hey, he needs his Florida condo because he is a professional podcaster. That's how he anticipates he'll make his money to pay a judgment of $148 million. He must be some heck of a podcaster. I mean, who wouldn't want to listen to a guy who's a disgraced mayor who got trolled by Borat? I mean, I can't imagine there's a huge demand for him, but that's his game now, is podcasting, and he needs a studio, and the Florida home has a studio. Of course, you don't need a $3.5 million condo to do a podcast. You can do it from a motel room. You can do it by renting a studio. You can live in a lot more reasonable quarters than a fancy Palm Beach condo, but Rudy loves it down here. I know that because I've seen him out down here. He's living his best life down here despite a huge judgment against him, despite having a criminal prosecution hanging over his head, the one in Fulton County. And despite the fact he has serious financial problems, Rudy still doesn't seem to get it. And perhaps he'll get it once his home is sold off. Lawyers for the creditors are arguing that the Florida condo is a significant drain on estate resources. So not only is it a valuable asset out there, but by maintaining the asset, it's costing the estate money. He's draining money from the estate, which needs to go to the creditors. In January alone, according to reports, Rudy Giuliani made 2 maintenance fee payments of around $16,000. So this is not a net positive for him. How much is he making in this podcast anyways? Also, Rudy is saying that it is premature to sell his condo because he is appealing the judgment. Well, good luck with that. You remember, the judge had already found against Rudy Giuliani. The judge issued a default judgment against Rudy. And the trial in December was just on damages. It was just how much he owed. And so he's not going to reverse the verdict. That was a default judgment. He failed to even put up a defense. He is challenging the amount of fees. But as said earlier, when you have a guy who's unrepentant, who continues to spread election lies and continued even during the trial to attack Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss, that's why he was hit with such huge punitives. And if they're ever reduced, it's not going to be reversed, but if they're ever reduced, it's not going to be that significant. I mean, he's still going to owe millions and millions of dollars. Just right now, it's $148 million. So his chances on appeal are small, and that is not good enough to tell the bankruptcy court to put everything on hold. I guess his argument is like from the movie Dumb and Dumber.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
Rudy is desperate, and his lawyers reflect that. In a recent article, Rudy's lawyers say that if Mr. Giuliani is forced to sell his Florida home, then he will be forced to incur expenses for alternative housing. Surely the committee does not intend Mr. Giuliani to join the ranks of the homeless. Well, there is a better alternative. Rudy can just sue his former client, who apparently owes him $2 million in unpaid legal fees. Yeah, Donald Trump. But Rudy, ironically, doesn't seem to be interested in doing that. I mean, the guy who put him out there to spread misinformation about the election is not paying the legal fees, and Rudy is still afraid to sue him for legal fees. He wants, again, the creditors to bear the brunt of this, not the client, because the client's name is Donald Trump. In a recent article from The Independent, Rudy Giuliani could be forced to sue longtime ally Donald Trump by a group of creditors that the cash-strapped former New York City mayor owes tens of millions of dollars. The Committee of Unsecured Creditors, which represents individuals and entities to whom Rudy Giuliani owes money, are discussing making Mr. Giuliani file a lawsuit against Trump to get their money, a source close to the matter told The Independent. The group has had ongoing discussions since early February, the source says, about possible litigation against Mr. Trump in an effort to collect $2 million in Mr. Giuliani's unpaid legal fees. The disgraced lawyer claims that he is owed that amount for his spurious effort to overturn 2020 election results. Legally, the committee can use the bankruptcy court to compel Mr. Giuliani to sue the former president. That could happen despite Mr. Giuliani saying during his recent bankruptcy hearing that he was adamant he was owed by either the Trump campaign or the Republican National Committee, but not Mr. Trump himself. Of course not. So this is where Rudy is. And don't forget, he's also facing prosecution in Georgia for these same election lies. I guess he's loyal to the end, or he's scared of his boss, Donald Trump. Whatever it is, he's going down with the ship, and it ain't going to be pretty. Indeed, the Rudy Giuliani of 30 years ago would have loved to prosecute the Rudy Giuliani of today. So that's the latest for the guy formerly known as America's Mayor. If you like this video, please like it. I'm Dave Aronberg, a.k.a. the Florida Lawman. In a world of Florida men like Rudy, be a Florida lawman. And I'll see you next time.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Midas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.